Well, thank you all for joining us. This is a very exciting event. We have Julie Stevens de Jonge. She is a professor in Spanish at the University of Central Missouri. And we did our first Professors at Playposium this past November. And Julie was one of our, I think it was a 20-minute session. She did a 20-minute session on digital escape rooms, which was clearly not enough time because the overwhelming feedback we got from participants was, we want to hear more from Julie. We want to know more about this digital escape room building. So she very graciously offered to run an hour-long session for you all. So I'm excited. I thought I was really cool because I was able to make escape rooms with Google Forms. But seeing what Julie's going to teach us, I definitely have no skills compared to her. So I'm excited to hear what you have to say. So thank you for joining us, and I'll let you take it away.
Okay, well, hopefully everybody can see my screen. Thank you very much, Lisa and David, and thank you very much for starting the group Professors at Play, which I happened to come upon, I think last summer. I guess it's only a year old or so. So sometime last summer, and I love the idea. I love the group, and I look forward to other opportunities to learn more about ways that those of us who are in higher ed can incorporate this idea of play into our classes. So I wanted to start with just a little bit of an introduction about me and kind of what my context is and where I work and what I've been doing with it. So I am at the University of Central Missouri, where the arrow shows here is in Warrensburg, Missouri. I actually live in Kansas City. But I teach all levels of Spanish in an undergraduate program at the University of Central Missouri. And I teach language classes, culture classes, literature classes, and film classes. So I have this kind of broad area of disciplines that I have to teach in. And I've found ways to sort of make these activities work in all of those courses. So obviously I don't teach STEM, but I am going to try to go out of my lane a little bit in this presentation and perhaps suggest possible ideas for STEM. And if anyone is in a very different discipline, I would love to hear your ideas about that. So the plan for today, but we're open to other paths if there are questions or people want to go in different directions. First, I just want to start with kind of what the escape room concept is, talk about a few pedagogical and cognitive foundations for it, give some examples, and then have the how-to after the examples. And then we hopefully will have a time for a little bit of a breakout chat among the participants where you can brainstorm ideas and also maybe develop some questions that would drive the Q&A session at the end. I am going to do the how-to, in other words, the kind of the how do you do this part after we see some examples. I don't think I'm going to have time to get into the weeds of it as much as maybe some people would like. The presentation is definitely geared toward people who don't have any experience doing anything like this, but because explanations might take a little bit longer, I have a couple instructional videos linked at the very end of the PowerPoint, and the PowerPoint itself will become available to everyone to click on those things. Also, I'm very happy. Anybody can email me and I'm happy to give a little bit more instructions. So I'll do a little bit of, this is how it was created, but if it may seem a little bit quick and I'm going to have to skip over some details just for the sake of time. But the presentation itself is going to go at a pretty quick clip. So I'm going to kind of go through a lot of different examples. I'm trying to going for quantity and breadth here rather than depth so that you can see a multitude of examples. And again, I can give details on how to use them to anybody who's interested for more. So the escape room as a concept, I took a quotation from an escape room blog, which says, escape rooms are a whole new way of experiencing storytelling by combining a social activity with interactive adventures and challenging puzzles. Escape game players are immersed in an entirely different world with storylines that feel like Hollywood blockbusters. But when I read that last part, I thought, well, that's a lot of pressure because Hollywood blockbusters is going to make everyone feel like, well, forget that. I cannot do a Hollywood blockbuster in my class. So therefore, I don't think I'll do it. So, but I don't think that we have to be quite that ambitious to sort of make it work. Now, the traditional escape room, especially pre-COVID, I doubt they're open right now during COVID. I don't think they would be. But the traditional escape room, had people go into a room, might look like this, it might look like this, and there are just objects around and different things, maybe drawers to open here, and participants then had a time limit of an hour, and they had to get out, and there was a door that you had to open. And having done a number of these actual physical escape rooms, I learned that you're actually not locked in. Due to code, they can never really lock anybody in, but in order to win the game, you go out the door. And it's funny because escape rooms have sort of entered popular culture. I don't know if anybody's a fan of the show Schitt's Creek, but in one of the very last episodes, the characters were in an escape room, and of course some were really into it and some were really not into it. So that is that has usually been my experience with the escape room groups, is that usually there's some people who are just really into it and others that find the whole thing sort of boring or tedious. So that's kind of a caveat, in that students do need to be sort of trained might not be the right word, but sort of prepared to do something like this, because it is kind of a different way of thinking about learning. So just to keep it really simple, basically the idea for the digital escape room is to use multiple platforms, and course content can be added to one or more of the online platforms. And then those platforms can be connected and linked to one another. That is the basic idea of the digital piece. So really the important thing here is links and the power of the URL. So you can an image can have a URL, forums can have a URL, puzzles, videos, documents, lots of things have URLs. And so really what you're doing with the digital escape room is you're just linking the links in a creative way. And the good news is no programming is needed. So you do not need to know a computer programming language to do this. Although if you did, you probably could do some really cool things. Another metaphor maybe is kind of this idea of a path or a journey with sort of stops along the way. And then the stops are maybe the information or skills, and they function like, breadcrumbs along the path that you sort of come across, and that leads you to something else. And there is a possibility to connect a digital or virtual escape room with the real world. So pre-pandemic, I had a digital escape room where the very end step was something hidden inside a copy of the book Don Quixote in our library, a book that I was fairly certain wasn't going to be checked out that semester, because I sort of know who teaches those classes and whether anybody would be going to the library for it. So their students were led eventually to the library through the digital escape room, and inside one of the books was actually a couple of gift cards for the first couple people who found it, to sort of incentivize it. So that there is a possibility of doing that as well, if you want to merge those two worlds, especially after the pandemic is over. So as far as the pedagogical foundation, I kind of focus on three aspects. One is just emotions and that cognitive emotional nexus in learning, and then also the importance of visual input in learning. So the emotions, there's a lot of research that shows that emotions are key to learning, that students need emotions to learn, and emotions can be all kinds of things, from the traditional emotions that we think of like happy, sad, angry, but they can also be things like curiosity, surprise, so anything that just sort of heightens their emotional awareness or holds their attention. So the idea of creating emotional experiences to hold their attention, there's also evidence that emotions increase memory, motivate people, spark curiosity. Curiosity is one of the knowledge emotions. And then just all of those things like surprise, interest, confusion, maybe a little bit of confusion and awe can be important to learning. So how to engage emotions, and how do we link that course content that you might have to emotions? And the digital story or digital escape room is kind of trying to mix story, mystery, where there's something that needs to be known or found out, and also the element of surprise. So pulling all those things together hopefully leads students to kind of engage in more lateral thinking, which would be that they would be using course content to solve a problem. Or the other way to think about it is that they are solving a problem in order to discover and reinforce course content. So the puzzles, enigmas, problems, whatever you would create, and the course content, they work in tandem to create an experience of play and discovery. So it's possible to use very general knowledge that has nothing to do with course content and link that to course content. So not everything has to start with course content. And I'll give you some examples, of course. One of the other elements that's really important for learning is this idea of images and visual input. And a digital escape room really allows you to harness the power of images and visual input. There are ideas like hidden pictures. Everybody likes to find something. Seems to be kind of a general human, something that humans find interesting and fun to do. And images, the good news is if you have a particular discipline that you may not think lends itself to a lot of images, it doesn't matter. Images can be related or unrelated to your course topic, and they can still be fun and interesting for the students. So the visual input, going to some of the research and the foundational knowledge about visual input, is that humans process visual information more efficiently than text, which is probably pretty obvious. The brain, this is a quotation here, the brain is set up in a way that visual stimuli and emotional response is easily linked, and together the two form memories. And other examples of this kind of research on visual input and memories is often if there's a traumatic or a particularly interesting or surprising visual experience, it's often remembered in a more sort of permanent way than our everyday lives, or especially than text. And then one other idea here is this idea of familiarity plus novelty. So there's also research that shows that humans like what's familiar, what's known, what is predictable, but they also like novelty and new things, but they don't like one or the other all the time. So finding a way to kind of blend what's known with what's new and interesting is sort of the sweet spot. So you're sort of mixing the predictable and the unexpected in an escape room experience. You hopefully are creating surprises. And here another quote from a book called Impossible to Ignore, Creating Memorable Content to Influence Decisions. The area of the brain that anticipates rewards is the same area that processes novelty. So novelty is definitely a feature of the escape room. But we humans, according to Carmen Simon, she's a neuroscientist, we don't want everything to be completely new, unusual, and novel. We still need things grounded in something that's familiar and recognizable. Now, one of the design challenges with the escape room is kind of the Goldilocks problem. After doing this for a number of years and trial and error, I found that you really need to find puzzles that are not too hard, but not too easy. And you also need to mix in some what are called very easy puzzles. Maybe you would even think of them too easy, but they kind of are confidence builders. I think a project that could be done, a research project that could be done in the future is I've noticed, this is just anecdotally, but I've noticed that some students are just really good at this stuff and other students get very frustrated. And so over the years, I've tried to figure out a way to challenge the students who are a little bit better at it and students who might not have the patience or the persistence to do it, to how to make them want to keep going. So for sure, if it's too hard, people become discouraged and quit. So I'm going to give some examples here. And so I'm going to start with the end product. So I'm not going to show exactly how I put it all together at first, but I will give you some ideas about that after I show you the examples. And the examples all involve multiple platforms, multiple software, things that are linked. I also will let you know which software products I'm using, and I'm using some free ones. And there's a lot you can do with everything, things that are just free. But I am using a few products that I did buy, and I've listed the prices and what they are and whether they're a one-time buy or a subscription. So most escape rooms are grounded in some sort of a story, but a story, you don't have to worry about becoming a writer. It can be very simple, kind of a simple pretext, or it can be something more expansive. But you just need a pretext for learning about or sharing the information. The puzzles and activities can require knowledge or they can contribute to the knowledge. So you can think of it the knowledge piece, whatever your course content is, it can be needed in order to do the puzzle, or the puzzle itself can lead to more information about that content or skills. And the other thing about the story is that I found students are very willing to suspend disbelief, because sometimes I thought, well, this is a pretty unbelievable or unlikely story. It's not really, there's some, maybe some laws of physics I'm violating here that they might question. But I found that students don't worry too much about that. And so you can be pretty creative with it and do sort of whatever you think might work. And this is just kind of a graphic to, again, show that idea that you can ask the students to use whatever you're doing in the course to move to some next step. And then then they from there can learn more content knowledge, or maybe a review or skills. And then you can also just harness their general knowledge about something, like a simple math equation, for example. Maybe you just want to, have them do a quick math problem. It's not part of your course necessarily, but then that leads them to another step, and then they can use that for knowledge review, whatever it might be. There are really two types of home base that I'm going to talk about here. And the home base is sort of where you're anchoring your links and you're anchoring your experience. And the two that I've worked with and that are free are Google Slides and Google Sites. And I think in the K-12 world, the use of Google Slides for these kinds of rooms has become quite popular. I don't know to what extent they are in higher ed. And I'm going to start with a really short example with Google Sites. This was a 15-minute activity that I did in class. We were learning about, Peru. We were learning about Cusco, Peru, which was the historical, and still is today, the center of Inca culture in South America. But we were also learning about discrimination of indigenous peoples in Latin America. And so there was a number of things we talked about in class. There was a film that we'd watched. And so we did this just in class. And so the students clicked, I'm going to click here. And the students here, this is an example of Google, get this moved down here, get Google Sites. And this is just where Google Sites allows you to set up a website. So I'd set up a website. And some of these examples, as you can tell, are going to be in Spanish, but I will, you don't need to know Spanish. I'll just quickly talk over them, and I think they'll make sense. So this was step one, and they were supposed to click on this. This was a place we talked about that was important to the film. So when they click on this picture, they are taken to something called Jigsaw Planet, which is a free site where you can upload an image, and you, as you can see, can create a jigsaw puzzle. I always keep it really simple, but you could do really complicated jigsaw puzzles on this with many, many pieces. So I try not to do that. I won't put together the whole thing, but you can kind of see that there is a clue here, and it's a clue about a place in Cusco, and they're going to use that information about this place to do the next puzzle. So you can sort of see that things, will come together here in the puzzle. And I'm probably not going to be able to do it fast enough. So I'm just going to show you where we are from here. Let's see here. And after they do that jigsaw puzzle, they're instructed to click on an arrow. That arrow takes them to another page in Google Sites. And this is a particular film that we saw about discrimination of the indigenous people in Peru. They're instructed to click here. And here they're given this map where we've been learning about different places in the city. And the puzzle that they did gave them a picture of this particular set of ruins. And this tells them they need to find where that is on this map. They click here. This takes them to another place in Google Sites. This is another important place in Cusco. It's called the Rock of 12 Angles. They click here, and they're given another map, and same map as before, but this time the clue is to go to the market. When they click on the market, they're brought to a video. So this is a video that is made with the video software Camtasia, and I do quite a bit with Camtasia. I won't play through the whole video here. I just want to fast forward to a part in it. And so you don't need to be able to see to hear it really. This is just somebody going through the market, showing different aspects of this market in Cusco, and this is just a video from online and all of the different products. When I get to the very end of the video, and this is something Camtasia allows you to do, the students are told, let me see if I can get to the end here. This says in Spanish, what this says is, go back and look for the unique potato. So there was a point in the video where he was holding up this very unusual potato. It had multiple sides. There it is. And so it had an interesting story to it. And so the students are told to go back and click on the potato. When they click on the potato, they get taken to a Google Forms. And so there's an answer here that they have to put in. It has to do with content from the video. Then they click on it and they get the, you did it, you did good. And when they submit it, I get to see that they did it. So that's just kind of a quick example. All of that took about, like I said, about 15 minutes or so in class. And that was just to kind of practice or reinforce something that we were working on for that particular course unit. So that's a short example. And then with Google Slides, so I'm going to start with that one as the first. Google Slides as a home base. The idea of Google Slides is you can actually create that illusion of being in a room, and you add images and links. So another example that I'll give you is this is from a course long activity. So this is where they have their regular course content, but each week or so, they have a little bit of information about the course mystery. So the idea of the course mystery is that this is a introductory Spanish class, which I almost never teach, but I happen to be given it at the last minute in the pandemic. So a lot of my examples here will be in English. The idea is to find 4 artifacts that are hidden somewhere in the Spanish speaking world. So there are 4 things, 2 pieces of literature. So an original copy of Don Quixote that was owned by George Washington, which actually there is a copy that George Washington got in the 1700s. And then Popol Vuh is a copy of legends and myths related to the Maya people that was written down in the 1700s, but the legends and myths go back centuries. And then 2 paintings that were stolen. So the idea is that there were 4 artifacts stolen. And the goal here is to introduce basic level, students to certain aspects of the culture, to help them to have appreciation for the breadth of the Spanish speaking world and just how complex and diverse it is, and also to become familiar with some of the people and in history and culture. So this is kind of a video that I started to give them the premise. And I'm not going to show you again all of this video. I do have a video that I will show you the whole thing, and it's 3 minutes. But this one, I'll just kind of show you the way that I got them started on this. And again, I'll just scroll through. You don't need the audio. So this is what I give them at the beginning of the situation. And let's see here. I give them a mission, and they're sort of told, here's what happened. I made up a story that it's the near future, and I say that we still face climate change, but we have flying vehicles. And if you're wondering where in the world did I get this footage from, it is with Camtasia. So this video software, and I'll explain a little bit more about that and how much it costs. And so we have flying vehicles. But let's see here. So I came up with this idea that we figured out how to teleport ourselves from one place to another in only minutes. Here's again where I'm violating laws of physics, I'm sure, but students don't seem to care. And then here's the explanation. There's a couple thieves. They stole this stuff. And I give them a little bit of information about the artists that were the painters, Frida Kahlo, and then we talk about some of the texts. And there's information and a little bit more about what these texts were. The thieves want to sell the items on the black market. However, one of the thieves has defected and wants those items to be found. And then at the very end here, they are introduced to a figure. And I do this with several of my course-long escape rooms where I come up with somebody who's not me, who is going to be their messenger, a person that they're going to correspond with. So this particular guy, his name is Letra, which means letter in Spanish. He's going to communicate with you and send you information. And you're going to have to find the 4 items by the end of the semester. and you'll get clues along the way. And then finally, at the very end, they're actually taken to a page in their textbook, and that gives them a clue. And then they are directed to click on a country that solves this riddle. And so they're given all of the countries that they could click on. And if they click on the right one, which in this case is Bolivia, that takes them to the first room that they're going to be in. So the room itself, and again, I can show you real quickly how to possibly set up a room like this. But just like with the regular physical escape room, there are basically just items in the room that students can click around on. In the regular escape room, people are not told the order to do things in. They're not given much help. And so this is where some of that lateral, more creative thinking comes in, because the students have to think about clicking on things that seem clickable. Not everything is important. Like, for example, this chair does nothing if you click on it. These are the original 2 paintings that were stolen, and they do nothing if you click on them. But if you click here or click here, there are 2 short videos about the artists. I've also got a countdown clock. You can add those from YouTube in any amount of minutes or hours that you want. Those are not necessary, but that is a feature of the escape room. So you can see there's a scroll here, there's a telephone, and this is I tried to make a teleporting image. That's what it's supposed to be. The scroll takes them to Google Forms, and they can't fill out this Google Forms if they haven't gone through all of the things in the room that are important. So they realize if they click on the scroll that they still have to go back. And so the idea here is that they need to download an app for the teleporter. So they have to download this app. And at the end, there are some clues here about a place, and so forth, so on and so forth. When they're finally done, they can click on the teleporter and they can answer more questions. So there are a couple forms embedded in this room, and that's just a way to get them to kind of report their knowledge. And with Google Forms, I think Lisa mentioned that she had used Google Forms. There is a way to set them up so that students can't move on until they answer questions correctly. So this is one of the rooms that you can use, along with that same storyline. They're in that same adventure. They end up going to various countries. So in this one, they're in Colombia. I just got this image offline. It's a particular street in Colombia. It's a particular neighborhood. Again, there are things to click on, like another video. Eventually, they have to fill out another form. They're eventually told at the end to click on something green. And so they can click around to any of the green items, and that takes them somewhere else. This is an example where it says use the magnifying glass to look for a secret message somewhere in the image. Hold on to that clue and stay tuned for your next clue. If this is not completely visible here, it says grab it by the handle. So when the students grab actually there we go. My clue is a little bit visible here. When they grab it and let it go, you can see, for example, here, there is a message that's hidden. And then that gives them a clue that they need. This, again, is something that you can download. It's a transparent magnifying glass, so it allows the text to be seen. And really all you're doing in Google Slides here is just putting in a shape and making the text that you write inside the shape be the same color as the shape. And so it's not visible until you have this sort of transparent magnifying glass. So that is one of the paths along the way. There's also another one where they get some more information about the painters and paintings. This is another painter, not the one of the stolen paintings, but it gives them a little bit of information about another painter in Latin America. There's the cat. If you click on the cat, I got to get out here. If I click on the cat makes a cat noise. That's all it does. And there's a lot of that in escape rooms where there's sort of false clues or things that may seem important but aren't. The dog, there's a video associated with the dog. The phone actually makes if you click on it, you can hear an actual phone ring. So let's see here. Okay, so if you click on this,
Tengo información para ti.
there's some audio there that gives them some clues, and they are told sort of what to do. So this is an example again where they need to click around in the room to sort of find things. Here's something, information, a video about food. Here's a video about coffee and its importance in Colombia. And then here again is a scroll where they have to fill out a form, and in order to move on. Okay, let's see here. So those are some examples. Oh, I have one more here. These are examples with Google Slides where this is the home base. This is a street in Antigua, Guatemala. And of course, you can find images of places, pretty much any place you can imagine, and that's really easy to use. There are some clues here. This is a clue. Obviously, the puzzle piece is a clue. And this volcano back here, if they click on it, they learn a little bit about volcanoes in Central America. So they have to sort of gather all of these pieces of information together and then put them into a Google form. Oh, and the bird up here, this is explained why this kind of a particular bird is very important to Mayan culture. So for me, at least in a Spanish 1 class, which a lot of students are forced to take and don't want to take, a lot of times they are just given very I don't know, list-like information. It's the cultural information. I think they find it boring. So for me, the Google Slides has been a way to kind of make it more interesting, more visual, and just give them some information that they might not already have. Also in this particular set of experiences, I do use a little bit of PowerPoint. I will say PowerPoint, turning PowerPoint into a link is doable, but I haven't always been able to make it work. So sometimes I've had to give them lead them to a PowerPoint slide where they just simply click through it as a show, like a slideshow, like I'm doing now. And this is this one, you are welcome to use this template. It's just a slide that has an envelope, and when you click through it, a secret message comes up, and so you can use that for information. So if you were to click on this PowerPoint presentation later, you can click on this slide and use it as a template to create this kind of experience. Here's another one. This is done in PowerPoint where there is a present and a surprise. And so there you can just edit. If you want to use this, you can just edit this particular text here, and then you could have whatever message you want in there. It could be just something fun for the day. It wouldn't have to be part of an escape room. But those are things that can be edited. You can just take that slide and edit it. So Google Slides, because they are being used in these escape room activities as a room, the place to kind of start is to basically create a room with a floor and a wall. And so here, just briefly, a brief how-to. When you have this empty Google Slides template here, you want to first put the background in. A background can't be moved around by the students. So if you go and choose an image, and I'm going to choose a background image of, you can just Google floor wall image. There's a lot of them, and you can just click on one, and this will become the background that you have. Once you have a wall and a floor, then of course you can put things in it. Now, actually this wall and this floor, I don't have a lot of room on the floor here, but you can play around and find different ones. But then you go to inserting, and when you go to image and search the web, not upload from the computer unless you have these images. If you just put transparent in front of any search, so if you want to do a chair, you'll get chairs that don't have a background, so they look realistic. So depending on whatever chair you like, you can bring this chair into the room, and as you can see, you can resize it and you can put it in there. And you can put, as you saw before, paintings on the wall and various other objects. So pretty much any object that you would want to put into the room, you can find by just going to insert image, upload from computer, not upload from computer, search the web, and just put the word transparent in front of it. Now, if I want this chair to be sort of live or do something, I can create a link. Let's say I want to create a link to this video when they click on that chair. So the way to do that is to go here to insert, go to shape, pick a shape, generally pick just the regular old square or rectangle, and put it around the object or whatever part of the object. Maybe you have a book or something sitting on the chair, so you could put it on that. You could make it as small as you like. Then I'm going to link this to a URL. So again, I'll go to insert, or excuse me, I will go make sure I have this highlighted, and I'll go up here to the link. So insert link, I'll paste in my link, and I'll hit apply. Now it's a little bit, whoops, wait a minute here. I don't want to do that. Actually, this is, I need to go to insert link here. That didn't work quite right. It should have worked there, but let's put that here. And so then when they click on it, they'll be taken to this particular video or URL. But of course, you can see the problem here is that the shape here is visible. So we want to make the shape invisible. We go up here to this, which is the fill color, and we want to make that transparent. So nothing, we can't see it, but we need to get rid of the line. And so we go up here to line, the border color, and we make that transparent. And so essentially it's invisible, but it's there. So when students click on the right place, they click here and they'll get to that video or whatever it is that you want to send them to. So that's a little bit of the using the Google Slides. Google Sites, to just show you a couple examples there, it functions in the same way, although because it's a web page, it has different, has a few different features that you can use. So the second example is again a course-long activity that I actually do with a class in Spain. So my students are learning Spanish, her students are learning English, and we have them kind of work together on it. And there's a Spanish set of problems and an English set of problems. Obviously, they do the English ones and my students do the Spanish ones. But again, I created a person. This person is Mercury, which is a Roman god of many things. But one of the things that he does is he sends messages. And I actually gave him an email address. I just went to Gmail and I thought he's going to have his own email address. And I had him be that messenger or point person. And I also gave him a voice, which I'll show you how you could do it. You can create voices to include. And he then answers their emails. So if they have a problem, they're supposed to email him. Now, of course, it goes to me. I'm really him. But it still keeps up that artifice of the story that he's the person that they need to be contacting. And he also emails them, and his image appears in a lot of the examples. So I think, let me see here. I'm going to try to play a video. Let me try to, let's see here. Let me stop sharing, and then I'll share again to see if I can get the, let's see here. I'm trying to get the sound here. Oops. And we will share the screen. Okay, well, it is optimized for video. So we'll see if it works. Hopefully you can hear this. And this is the premise that I set up for them. Okay, so when the students email me/Mercury, they get given the link to the next step. And so they are given a link to this particular Google Sites. And so just like with the Google Slides, there are ways in Google Sites to do quite a few things. You can add images, you can add text, you can add video, you can add maps, and anything, any of these things, text, images, anything can be linked. So this is telling them to click here. And when they click here, they are given the information about the escape room mission. So that's how they kind of get started. But then they're taken to different sites. And just to sort of show you what it looks like, this is the editing version. So when you go to Google Sites, which is free with the Google Suites, over here on the right, you can see all of the options where you can insert things like text box, images. You can use an embed code. If you have videos with an embed code, you can pull things up from Google Drive. There are various layouts. There are all kinds of things you can do, collapsible text, YouTube, just a ton of stuff. What I have done to make this work in an escape room is on the pages, you can see I have a lot of pages. Some have sub pages here, but with the little line across them, what that means is that they cannot see it. So if they get to the main page, they can only see part of the navigation. They can't see where they're going. And all you do there is click on the three dots and just hide from navigation. And that allows you as the editor, so I didn't mean to do that. That allows you as the editor to control when they see certain things. If you wanted them to, for example, go to this particular page, you just simply go up here to, after you've published it, you publish it and you give it a name, and you just go to the view published site. And then that will give you a URL that you can copy and share with anyone. And all of the whole set of pages in Google Sites then allows you to just have URLs for every single page, and you can use those strategically and share them as you wish. So that is the way I use Google Sites for that particular project. And on the software tools, I have a couple more examples to show, but I did want to just pause here for a second and let you know what these tools are. I usually use multiple ones. On the free side, we have the Google Suite, which are sites, which creates websites, slides, it's like a PowerPoint, but with the slides that allow you to create a room, Google Forms, Google Drawings, and Google Maps. Jigsaw Planet is free. Natural Reader or other text-to-voice applications have free versions that can be upgraded. But if you just wanted to create a voice that wasn't your own voice, there are a number of options in English. And then many options for Creative Commons images. Of course, many images and videos that you can tap into. What's not free? So the video editing software Camtasia, which is through the company TechSmith. And if you click here, you can get to the TechSmith website. There are two things TechSmith sells that I have bought, Camtasia and Snagit, which is a desktop capture imaging editing software platform. I use both of them. So sometimes I take an image, I take a picture of the screenshot, and then I edit it and add little pictures or whatever to it. I have another example of that. Camtasia has a one-time fee that if you type in educational discount, it does have a cheaper version for educators with $99 one time. Snagit is $29.99, at least last time I checked. I also use a site called Breakout EDU, which is a subscription fee, $99 per year. I also have a one-time purchase of a software product called Doodly, and then PowerPoint. So I'll show you just real quickly a couple other examples. This is just a quick little puzzle that you may or may not have seen. It's kind of a common brain teaser online. It's the parking lot question. And you see here, I've got a Google form here that it's linked to. So the question is, what's the number on the parking spot? Initially, it doesn't seem obvious, but then when you turn the whole thing upside down, you realize, oh, 86, 88, 89, 90, this must be 87. So when you go to this particular Google Forms and you copy and paste that into the browser, So for example, here, it will then ask you to input, all right, what's the question? You put 87. And then at the end, you can get another puzzle, right? So this one is, can you guess the next letter? And in the interest of time, I'll go ahead and just tell you what it is. This is supposed to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So the next letter would be N for 9. You hit submit. Oh, I did not use a capital letter. What's the deal there? Oh, what is my next letter? Use a capital letter. Read my own instructions. Okay, so there we takes us at the very end of a Google Forms. You can have a kind of a final thank you for your submission, but instead of that, I just put another link there. And this takes them to another puzzle, and this is a hidden picture puzzle. It says find the Oscar among all of the C3POs. So this is like Oscar, like in the Academy Awards. And again, in interest of time, I'll just go ahead and click on it. It's this guy right here. And then that you get a video. This is example, again, like I showed you before, where they have to click on the correct image. They click on what is actually the food that they're supposed to click on, and they have reached the clapping dog. There is a lot of power also in Google Drawings. And I have an example here of bookshelves. Bookshelves can be good places to hide things. So in a Google Drawing, which just allows you to basically pull in an image, it's a kind of a blank canvas, and you pull in an image. You could have them do a math problem or something, and it could be the math could be completely unrelated to your course. And you could just give them, maybe they come up with 2 numbers, 2 and a 7. And they're supposed to kind of figure out, all right, maybe the 2 is which shelf number, maybe 7 is how many books over, which is what the case is. So if I count over to the 7th book on the 2nd shelf, I get here. And what I get taken to is a YouTube video on a t-test, how to do a t-test. So it can be kind of a fun way to give them access to some content that you want them to learn. So this is just a mathematic question with an answer that leads them to another step. Here is a second example, another bookshelf. And so this canvas here is just sort of blank like this. You pull in any image that you want. And in the same way that you can link something in Google Slides is the same way in Google Drawings. So you just take a shape, put in a shape, make both the border and the fill transparent. So 3, 5, so this one's going to be 3rd shelf, 5th book over. And this one takes us to the next software that I wanted to show you briefly. So Breakout EDU is it is a subscription service. Unfortunately, it used to be free. And then of course, like everything, it became not free. And this basically allows you to create different types of locks, which is common in an escape room. So this one, for example, it says use the clues to unlock 5 locks. This is one that has to do with color. This has nothing to do with my class, but I just wanted to put in a couple different examples. So you could say, put the US presidents in order by inauguration year. And after you think about it for a while, the answer is yellow, blue, red, white, green, and then we get to the next lock. This is from a film class that I teach, so this one won't be obvious to anyone unless you happen to have seen this particular film. But this is what order did these scenes occur in, and this is a shapes lock, and so the answer here is diamond, circle, square, triangle, star. And then the next lock is a directional arrow. So you can use this for a lot of different things. Maps is a kind of an obvious choice. So you could, for geography, I'm leaving from Melbourne, Australia, and I visit these places: Madagascar, Italy, Finland, Quebec, and Venezuela. So like, how's my plane going? So starting in Melbourne, Australia, and then going to Madagascar, it's west, then north, and north some more, then west, and then south. And then that opens up another lock. And here, this is one for perhaps STEM people. This is use the letters to put these elements for the periodic table in order according to their atomic number. Start with the lowest atomic number, and then the letters themselves will spell another element. Now, this is a good example of something I did on Snagit. So you can just open up a canvas and Snagit, and then you just take various images and you can add letters to them or shapes or colors. And so then I created this one big picture there of the different elements in the periodic table. If the students get it right, This is a letter clue. So it would spell R, that's the first one, and then A, D, O, N, with Mercury being the last one. And then the last puzzle, this is just an anatomy one. My husband happens to be an audiologist, so I just asked him to help me with this one. This would be use the clues to indicate the order in which sound travels through the ear. And so students are given 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and they need to put the numbers in order. And then the answer here happens to be 3, 2, oops, let me get this down here, 3, 2, 1, 5, 4. And then they've reached the great work. But here, yet again, there's another link. And this is an example of using Google Maps. And I'm actually using a street view of the oldest restaurant in the world, which happens, oldest continuously operating restaurant in the world, never been closed since the 1700s, which happens to be in Madrid. It's a super popular restaurant, as you can see by all the tourists that are out here. But I'm able to take a particular street view of this particular restaurant. And in the previous message at the end of Breakout EDU, it said, look for a number and also a word that means nephew. And so here's our number, the 17, and I could put that into something else that they have to know. And then the word for nephew happens to be sobrino. So they would then note that for the next activity. So those are examples of, you probably maybe forgotten by now, but we started with a bookshelf and then bookshelf all the way to the Breakout EDU. So Breakout EDU is, as I said, subscription service. It's very popular with K through 12. Oh, and I should mention, those were breakouts that I created, but they have a ton of already made games. So whatever your discipline is, it's likely that you'll be able to find it. My professor in German, she found a great one on the Berlin Wall and living under in East Germany while the Berlin Wall was up. And there's just a lot of good activities. But they basically come down to these puzzles. It's either a shapes puzzle, a number, a color, directional arrow, or letters. So you're kind of limited by those. And that's their logo. And Jigsaw Planet, as I showed you earlier, this is free. And this, you just upload an image, and you can upload an image and you can create any kind of a puzzle out of it. You can use different shapes. I use more traditional puzzles. This is one that I've already got put together here, but they would have put it together. And this is a film class I teach where we were learning about a certain type of film angle. So they have to tell what is this angle where the camera is kind of looking down on the subject. And then there's a famous thing that one of the characters says, and this is a blank that they need to fill in. So you can use Jigsaw Puzzle. Let me show you this one. Also as you can put dots on it, for example, not through Jigsaw Puzzle, but through Snagit. Again, you can just put these colors, and then they would use those colors once they get it all put together in this painting. Then they know, okay, this is the order that the colors go in on that Breakout EDU, for example. So Jigsaw Planet is an idea. I'll just show you what Doodly looks like. It's basically draw your own cartoon videos for horribly non-artistic people like me. It's also called whiteboard animation software. It's a one-time purchase. Here's one that I did that is, again, a link between the digital world and the real world. And this comes at the end after they've opened up a bunch of locks. And it basically tells them, let me fast forward. It says here, next time that you come to class, look for Leon. Leon is the name of the city in Spain that they're doing the collaboration with. Look for Leon on a map in our classroom. And I don't have my own classroom because I teach at a college campus and we don't even have, nobody has their own classroom. But just by chance, in my classroom, there's a map on the wall of Spain. And so I just put a Post-it note on that map. When they came to class, the Post-it note told them to look down. And there was, from my days of doing escape rooms in the classroom, physical escape rooms, I have a trick dictionary, which looks like a dictionary, but when you open it, there's actually a compartment. And so when they look down, they open up the dictionary and they got a free pen. That was just third of their prize. So things like that you can do to kind of mix up the digital world and the real world. Here's another example. This is a secret message that you can put on Google Drawings. Again, by putting, and you can basically take this template from me if you want from the presentation, but students then slide this little decoder across and they read a secret message. And then lastly, I just want to give a couple collaboration examples. This, again, I'm out of my lane here because I don't teach anatomy, but you can do things where they have to basically, the students need one another to solve a puzzle. So they're not just on their own doing it. So you could do sort of a whodunit mystery where you have something is stolen, and each person has an identity and a piece of information or knowledge that other people need. A little bit like the clue game. It could be an image that everybody has a separate image, or everybody has a separate word or a separate fact. So for example, in an anatomy class, you could say someone stole the class skeleton, and every student is given a different organ and a clue. And you could have it where there are several options. You could have groups of 5 to 7. Everyone has a different clue. Together they reveal it, putting together the clues together, they reveal the identity of the thief. But they have to first figure out which organ each student has by asking yes or no questions, like, is this an organ that's part of the circulatory system or something like that? And their partner either says yes it is or no it's not. And once they guess the organ, the student then shares the clues they have. And maybe the clues could be words that combine with other words to form a sentence. And so the thief is the person who sits behind David. So it could be that one of the people in the class is the person who did it, and that's what they're trying to figure out. So it could have different words presented, and then they have to put the words in order. Or the clue could be a jigsaw puzzle of the human body that reveals a clue. You could easily upload an image to Jigsaw Planet and break it up and have people give each other pieces. And then the last example I have is just like you can do something with the stolen work of art, as I did. You could have people with different masterpieces if this was an art class. And then the student has a digital jigsaw puzzle of the masterpiece. And in that, when they put the puzzle together, there can be something written on it, a clue. Maybe they first have to answer some questions about art on a Google form, and that takes them to something else. I mean, as you can see, the sort of maze-like possibilities are infinite in the way that you want to put these things together. In the PowerPoint, these instructional videos are here. So I have some just quick little videos that I made on how to use Google Drawings, how to use Google Forms, Jigsaw puzzles, or excuse me, Jigsaw Planet, and how to add a clue to the puzzle, and then Google Sites. Also in the PowerPoint, I have some links to story and theme puzzle ideas that you can use if you just feel like, well, I don't know where to start or what's a good puzzle. There's a bunch of websites with puzzle activities, escape room activities. And some of these are for the physical world, but they can easily be adapted online. So if we still have time, I was thinking that we could have a breakout of, say, it could be maybe 5 to 10 minutes, whatever you think, David and Lisa, as far as just letting people maybe bounce some ideas off with their own discipline. And then also if there's any questions that you kind of come up together, I can answer those questions then with the whole group after you come back from the breakout. So don't know how, let's see, I guess there's 70 so participants. We could divide up into maybe 12 or so breakout rooms if you think that would work, David.
Sure, I'll set up 12 rooms here.
Okay. And then whatever time period you think would work, if you think 5 minutes is plenty, 7 minutes, and then we can kind of come back and I can answer any questions. So I'll just be quiet. And if anybody has a particular question, do you want people to put it in the chat and then you tell me what it is, or how would you like that to occur?
Hey, folks that are brave, just open up your mic, or if you want to type in the chat, either way.
So one of my partners asked about using mobile devices and how maybe that would look, or if that was possible. Like,
yeah, yes, it is possible. Both the Google products are optimized for cell phones as well. So you can set them so that they are visible, or that they change the configuration just a little bit. For the most part, I would say yes. Most of the time when I've done this in class, my students are just pulling out their cell phone. So they're just, some have a laptop, but they definitely are able to use cell phones for sure. And some people have, I'm trying to think, Google, they'll have a Google Drive on their phone. But I haven't had a lot of trouble with that as far as people not being able to do it. And the students are certainly likely to choose their cell phone anyway, especially if they're in class.
Sarah politely raised her hand, so maybe Sarah, do you want to?
I just had a question. If you it doesn't sound like you have questions about like accessibility and ADA compliance with using something this complex. I know that that's the first thing I hear coming from our ODR office if I were to try to implement something like this.
It's such a good question. And I actually just recently did a certification course on online teaching, and we talked about that ADA compliance. And to be honest, I know I cannot say that all of it is. I know that images, as long as they're brought in with alt text, those are supposed to be compliant. But absolutely, it is the case that I have not thought through that sufficiently as far as all of the things. Right, that is very complicated, and depending on what kind of compliance issues there are, whether it's audio or whether it's
blind and
visual
screen readers and
exactly. I think that images are seem to have caught up a little bit more with some of the other things than video. I do think, depending on what the issue would be, I think there are ways around it, things that you could do. But absolutely, it's probably something that I should look into more, because I've just sort of been freelancing this, doing it on my own, just kind of on whims. And so I haven't done anything really systematic to make sure that it is ADA compliant.
Awesome.
Yeah, good question. Yeah.
Jody's got a question in the chat here. How would you suggest a newbie start creating something like this?
So I was telling somebody in my little breakout room, I think a good place to start, well, first of all, I would start at the micro level. I meant to say at the very beginning of all this, these are things that I have accumulated over years. So it's not realistic probably to kind of have all of this ready to go. I started really small, just with I would call it a micro puzzle in class, where I just thought, I'm going to give them a little word problem, and then when they get the word problem right, it's going to take them to a video, something like that, just very small. If you want to see a lot of really good examples, the breakoutedu.com site, it does cost to subscribe, but I believe you can access their materials at least in sort of a trial fashion, or at least to sort of see what they're like. I watched a lot of those, and there is something for every single discipline. The site is definitely K through 12 focused. I mean, there's a lot of sort of things that appeal to younger children, but they have some training videos on it, like how to use this or how to think about this. And they really gave me a lot of good ideas. And I I found that I didn't want to just use the Breakout EDU, because like I said, all they are is, you can either have you can pull in video and audio and all that, but they're either have a shape or either have a number or a letter. And so some stuff I just kind of wanted a little more of an expansive set of platforms, but that's a good place to look at and see examples. They're very, like I said, they're very short. And so when you join the site, you have the opportunity to create your own. Oh, and the other thing is they send you a physical kit, which I did use pre-pandemic, which is a box, and they send you a certain number of locks. And so if you have a classroom, which again, most college students don't have college instructors don't have a dedicated classroom, but I have done it where you leave things around the room and they have to do certain things. So you get that with it, a kit, and then you get access to all of their instructional videos. That's a good place to start. But I think small, as you can see, I don't know why I make things so complicated, but I do tend to go here, I'll go here, and then I'll go here, and then they'll go here. I have to sort of write it down or I get lost, but you don't have to be that complicated. I mean, it could just be here to here to here. And at the end, there's something that they get. But as far as instructional, I think the Breakout EDU site is helpful.
All right, you got a bunch of questions here. I guess I'll just read the next one here. Let's see here. Oh no, there's so many. So Kelly asks, have you used digital escape rooms to test knowledge and give a grade? Recommend only to reinforce information, or would you recommend both?
That is actually a really also a good question. And I feel like that is open in my mind. I was very tentative at first. I was afraid if I made these too much like a test that it would turn students off. I no longer trust my own sense of what students can do. I've been really wrong on some of this. Like some of this it was just too hard. I thought, oh, this will be no big deal. And then I realized they couldn't do it. And so I realized that's wrong. I need to take the level down. So right now, mostly what I do is I use it as reinforcing the content, teach the content, but I really just give it mostly a did it or didn't do it grade. But that isn't to say that you couldn't do it that way. I mean, that's actually a very interesting idea to think about. I think I've just sort of haven't developed enough of a sense of whether this is a realistic thing. Like I've been writing paper and pen tests for years. I sort of know what they should be able to do, but this I'm a little bit unsure. But I think it could be a fruitful way to sort of explore, but I'm less confident in that testing environment than just having it be an enhancement to the class or an add-on to the class.
Great. Well, next up from Darlene, on average, how many hours does a room take to create?
Well, I have two that are course length ones, and that would be many hours just to keep that. Once you get it done, though, it's done. And then I just recycle it. But if you just wanted a 15-minute activity like I've sort of done, where you might have a home base of either Google Slides or Google Sites, and then a couple things on those pages or linked to them, I think once you feel fairly comfortable with the tool, and again, I know that takes some time to get used to, I think you can do some of these things in a couple hours. Again, it depends on how much of the idea you have worked out in your head. If you have, when I get an idea and I say, oh, I know I'm wanting to go here, 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 then I can just sort of implement it. Sometimes I start with this idea that they're going to start in this room, and I think, and then what? I don't know where they're going. And so I'm kind of thinking through it as I'm making it, but then it does take longer. But I would experiment small, like I said, with a couple of the platforms. If you don't want to spend money, there's the option for free platforms. You can do a lot with the free stuff. I guess the other thing I would say, and this is just my own personal preference, is I've become really, really used to using the video because Camtasia, which is the $99 thing, it is pretty awesome. I mean, it's not hard to learn. No, you don't need to be a filmmaker, and it just allows you to bring in audio, video clips. You can narrate over it, and it has all this. It has images that you can pull in, and so it's just easy to use. And I find that is something that, again, I can do a lot with, because also with the Camtasia, it has a hotspot function. I think Camtasia was originally sold to businesses because they imagined that a business was going to make a video like, buy our insurance, want more information, click here. I think that was what they envisioned it for. I don't know how many educators are using it, but they created a hotspot. So you can just basically say, when people click here and you pick something in the video, it opens up into another whatever, a URL to something else. So that gives you more potential to move from a video to another site of some sort. I really personally like that, but it is not free. So, but like I said, educator price isn't too bad.
Is it a one-time $99 fee?
Yes. So one-time $99 fee. However, I will say, I think I mentioned this in the breakout room. They have some free, what are called assets, and an asset is video footage, audio footage, and it's all copyright free. So you won't see anything famous in it. There's no famous people. There's no, there's no famous painting. So you get it all copyright free. So you can type in things like, I want a city street. I want a footage of a city street, and they have it. It seems like they have everything. The only thing about that, though, is they have limited numbers of free assets, and so they do sell a subscription service to have access to thousands and thousands of access to thousands and thousands of assets. And I confess to have broken down and bought that. So that's where I got some of those really cool ones. They do have some that are for free, but.
Awesome. So Maria asks, have you used digital escape rooms in breakout rooms and have students work in teams?
Well, yes, I have. So in theory right now, with the collaboration project that I have between the people in Spain and the people here in the United States, they're in groups of 4. So they have 2 Americans and 2 Spanish students, and they're working together. I created some activities where my students had pieces of information that the people in Spain needed and vice versa. So you can do things like that, work in teams for sure. A lot of times if I do it in class, I just say, try it on your own if you want. Sit, try it with the person next to you and kind of try to make it a collaborative thing. Because you're right. I mean, in a real escape room, that's one of the whole purposes. Is it's like this social experience where everybody's together and many brains are working on it. So I think that's ideal. It hasn't worked very well during the pandemic because we haven't been able to. I am actually teaching in person this whole year. I have been since August, but we're not supposed to get people together. So they're all supposed to sit far apart. So I can't do some of that I might have done before.
Yeah, things will be changing. So it's good to know how.
I hope so. I hope so.
Laura wants to ask if you could speak to the idea of having students create escape rooms.
I have that. Yeah, I have that as actually an assignment in one of my classes. And that's another thing that I was a little off on in my expectations. The first time I assigned it, they didn't do a very good job. I mean, they weren't very creative. They tried to just do something real simple. And it is, I have realized it is somewhat of a challenge. And this is what educators have to deal with all the time, is it is a little hard to figure out what makes a good puzzle. And so they did some very basic stuff. So they have that assignment yet again this semester, but I haven't received their projects. Breakout EDU allows you to assign a task to students. So they don't have to buy it or anything, but if you have an account, you can just say, all right, here you go into Breakout EDU. You can do a color lock, a directional arrow lock, and you can have them do a couple of projects. So yeah, I think it's a really good idea. It shows them that they have to actually know quite a bit about whatever the content is. You have to know it pretty well if you're going to create a puzzle about it. But yeah, that's a feature in Breakout EDU, and you could certainly assign it with the other platforms. I think students vary in their ability to use those other platforms. So it's not super easy to say, use Google Forms unless you're going to really explain it in class how to use it. But the Breakout EDU is pretty simple. They make it pretty easy for students to do it.
Awesome. So Janine asks, she's asking, wouldn't this be great if there's a Facebook group or somewhere to collect templates? Of course, we could use the Professors at Play listserv and the Professors at Play website. I would be more than happy to set up a place. Lisa and I are happy to curate that if anyone wants to share stuff. But I wanted to ask that as a question. Do you know of places now, Julie, where people can go? You listed some tool sites. Are there places where the community gathers to discuss this kind of work?
Boy, good question. There could be. I don't know of anything right now. The links I have are just ideas that people have. There's a lot of people who are out there that do little YouTube videos on things. It's real kind of a thing that's in right now with the K through 12 people, especially since the pandemic, is to take Google slides and make a Bitmoji room. So the instructor takes his or her Bitmoji, puts it in the room like, hi, or doing something funny, and then has different things in the room. Maybe it's a classroom, and can have the students, I don't know, click on different things. They might have an assignment. So there probably is, I don't actually know of it. So I don't know of a Facebook group or Twitter or anything like that, but yeah, so it would be a good idea.
Well, great. Anyone wants to send me resources, we'll make a digital escape room page, resource area on the Professors at Play site and share whatever you got. We're happy to do that.
Yeah.
So copyrights. Zeno asks how you get around copyrights with movie clips. I use movie clips to discuss science behind it, and YouTube blocks my videos. So how do we deal with copyright?
Oh, YouTube. Oh, so I assume that I missed the name of the person asking that question. So you create a YouTube video. What was the name?
Zeno, Z-Y-N-O.
Oh, okay, Zeno. You create a video and then you upload it, and they don't like it for some reason because you've got something in it like music or audio that's or video that's copyrighted. I'm assuming that's the problem. Okay, well, I get around it by using. Oh, you have the actual movie clip. Okay. So how did you get did you get the movie clip off of YouTube?
Yes, Julie. So
yeah,
I have the video. So there's certain scientific concepts being discussed or being done. So I clip the video and then I put it on my LMS. And then I want my students now, and I make a video from that on YouTube. But every time I get blocked, although I put all the links in there. So I'm thinking if I'm going to use your route of creating something, would they also now block me? Some form of copyright, I don't know.
Well, somebody I see is suggesting Ed Puzzle. That is a site where you can clip videos. If it's originally in YouTube, I don't know if the problem is that YouTube recognizes that it's from YouTube. Now, I get around this. I don't know if this is kosher or not, but the way I get around it is because I use Camtasia. I can use the Camtasia assets because they've got all this free stuff. But if I want something from YouTube and I want to clip it, Camtasia just allows you to take a video of your screen. So if I want to show 2 minutes of a demonstration or 3 minutes of something, it just kind of puts a frame around the screen. I play it for 3 minutes. It comes into Camtasia, and YouTube never sees it because I don't put these Camtasia videos on YouTube. I'm not using them. I feel like that's okay in the sense that I'm just directing them to those 3 minutes within it. But you could take demonstration video 1, these 2 minutes, demonstration video 3, these 3 minutes, and you just stitch them together on Camtasia. Camtasia can let you pull video from, I mean, you could take a Beatles song, they wouldn't know about it unless you push it up onto YouTube again, unless you're putting it out there for the public. So you can use, you're basically doing the same thing in my mind, unless somebody can tell me if there's an attorney in the room. I think the way I look at it with Camtasia is that I'm sort of just drawing their attention to it, even though I'm using a clip from it, but I'm not putting it out on any kind of public platform. Sort of like.
Well, yeah. Thank you, Julie, so much. That was amazing. I had no idea you could do all of that, actually. So it'll be fun to play around with that. Every time we have an event, I think we come away with, we need to have like a week-long workshop where we can all just try stuff out. So it was pretty amazing. We will definitely get that posted on our YouTube channel and then have some more resources on the Professors at Play website. So check back on that. If you're not on the mail listserv, please get on that so we can keep communicating. And just Julie, thank you so much. That was
sure.
Really
and like I said, I have no problem. There are some details I had to skip over. And so there's a couple little details here and there. And if anybody gets starting on one of these little things and they run into any kind of a problem, just please email me, reach out to me, and I'll be happy to help with it. Because a lot of them, it's pretty quick and easy to explain, but might need just a tad more information. So email me anytime with questions.